Welcome to the UK Fantasy Football Show, Goal's weekly podcast that discusses many football fans' favourite pastime. We'll be analysing the last week's results, looking at Liverpool's title triumph in depth, and revealing our teams for Game Week 32. Sam, as our resident Manchester United fan, how are you feeling about Liverpool ending their 30-year league title wait?
I'm glad they've done it. Because it was inevitable, and it was just holding up the narrative, the key narrative to the season, which is, will Man United reach third, such as I predicted back right at the start of the season. Liverpool were comfortably the best team in the world. So I'm glad they have actually won the league and done it properly. I remember when United won their first title for 26 years, they won it without having to play a game. I think Villa lost to Wimbledon. So it was. I remember that Old Trafford. The next match was immense, and it's a shame Liverpool won't have that. And I think after all this time, it's a little. I don't know, it's just a bit unfair that they won't be able to just have that Anfield experience of when they've won the league after such a long time. I'm sure, when fans get back at whatever stage that will be, they will, try and do something, but it won't have that immediacy. Especially when you think about, when you hear about like Michael Jordan and, any ultimate professional athlete, that as soon as they've won something, that's it. That day is all they're bothered about in terms of celebrating. After that, it's right, how do we get ready to go and win again? So will it mean as much to the fans? Will it mean as much to the players for that ultimate celebration? But yeah, they won. And they won by an absolute canter.
I think
in a way it's good that they got the kind of championship sealed so early, because they have been able to enjoy, the fans have been able to enjoy it at Anfield up to a point where they almost knew they'd won the league, if you see what I mean. If this had gone down to the final games of the season, it might have been great television viewing for us, but that would have been even weirder, I think, to a degree. It's quite good that they've been able to come back after this the coronavirus lockdown and actually just win a couple of games. Or win one. Has they won one game or two games?
Don't give them that much credit, mate. They've only won one.
and that's it. It's kind of sealed it.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly been pretty impressive, and it's hard to begrudge them, really. Whatever fan of whatever colour you are. Is it 23 points clear they are now? I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, something painfully distant. I mean, obviously, working in the world we work in, it would have been a great story for them to have smashed City at the Etihad next week, to have won it. But if that's their crowning match for winning it, and they can go out and do something there, that would be that little cherry on top for we're the best team in the land. If we win the title, then we go to our nearest rival and smash them. I think from a fantasy perspective as well, it means that Liverpool players are still, for at least that game, are still going to be vital. I wonder whether Klopp will be, driven to get as many points as humanly possible. So still keep on playing Mane and Salah and Firmino and Trent, etc. Or whether he will go, right, we've won the league. You guys need a break now, because more than likely the new season is going to be starting pretty soon. Have the next 4 matches off, have a couple of matches towards the end of the season, maybe. I don't think that will be the case for the City match, because it is City. It's their first match after winning the title, and probably their first match after winning the title, maybe at Anfield. But then, especially with players like Minamino, if you can get him some more game time, and Curtis Davis and a few of the other kids like Harvey Elliott, just get them some first team experience with pretty much no pressure. I think that would be very sensible, but may cause fantasy issues.
Yeah, they can still break the record points total for the Premier League. I guess that is going to be their sort of big aim. They can't go unbeaten now because of that loss to Watford out of the blue, really. But I'm sure, considering all the situations, I'm sure that Klopp won't be starting to rotate too much until I guess that they could get 107 points, and the Premier League points total is 100 points when City got it, I think, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So that's I guess what their big goal now will be. And you have to say that considering their form this season, I mean they've only dropped points in 3 league games, I think it is. So was it United? They drew at home. Drew away.
Everton and Everton and
Watford. So after City this game week that's coming up, they've got Villa at home, then Brighton away, Burnley at home, Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Newcastle away. I mean, to be honest, they could maybe drop a couple of points here or there, but
Yeah, I think that game Liverpool could struggle a little bit against Man City, because I think Man City will be out to kind of set the record straight to a degree. Pep will send his players out and say, "Prove to me we can contend with this team. They're the champions of England now." So a part of me was thinking, do I want Trent Alexander-Arnold in my team this game week, just for that reason almost? Because I just had a little feeling it could get a little bit messy, obviously, with Liverpool having already won the title. Hope it isn't the case. Trent has been brilliant this season. He's been amazing for Liverpool. 12 assists, is their top assists provider from a full-back. That's absolutely amazing. I mean, what value he has been in fantasy as well. I would take him out reluctantly, remove him, let's say, necessarily for that game. Just a consideration.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? It's a lot of money.
I'm of the opposite opinion slightly, I think, for the Man City game. Like, if Man City had won last night and they were going into this home match against Liverpool, with the title still mathematically in the balance, then I would be pretty confident City would win. But I just think that, like, Liverpool don't have a game this weekend, as far as I can recall. Man City do have a game this weekend. Liverpool can essentially just take a few days off now, just get the partying out of the system, then hit the ground running next week, and they'll have that momentum. They'll have that drive, I guess. I mean, it's possible that I'm completely wrong. Man City are an amazing team at the end of the day. They could easily rotate and pick them off at home. Liverpool aren't as strong away from Anfield, even if they are very good. But for me, I still think that Liverpool probably do have the edge, considering they've just won the title. So it's definitely in the balance, but I'd say less in the balance than if City had beaten Chelsea. And they disappointed me last night, to be honest. I mean, that defending for the first goal, Mendy and was it Gundogan, who just flapped around on the halfway line and let Pulisic run through. And then the second goal as well, it was just calamitous defending, and it's kind of sums up Man City's season in a way. You look at Liverpool, and they've been so solid at the back. I can't think of too many times when they've had a full strength team out. Adrian wasn't great in the Champions League when Alisson was out, but when Alisson's been there and the defenders have been there, they've just been so good at the back. City, in comparison, they've got a massive weak spot there that Pep's never really managed to solve.
Yeah, City's goal difference is pretty poor, actually, compared to Liverpool's. And Liverpool have ground out quite a few 1-0s this season. Spurs, Sheffield United, 2-1 at Palace, 1-0 at Norwich as well. These are the games you just getting them over the line, get the 3 points, get out, don't concede any goals. Also, like, impressive high-scoring wins as well, where they've kept clean sheets, such as 4-0 against Southampton, 4-0 against Leicester, 4-0 against Palace. They've been epic. I mean, is this from Guardiola's perspective and Man City's perspective, is this one of the worst seasons Guardiola's ever had, even though he's likely to finish second? They've actually lost 8 games. I reckon Guardiola's probably never lost 8 games as a manager in a season. And obviously the season's not even over yet.
I would probably say it's too early to say, because he could still win the Champions League. Man City are probably one of the favourites to win that. There's a lot of openness, I guess, in that quarterfinals. You got some teams there where they could draw them and blow them away, and they could still technically, they're still in the cup, aren't they? I think they've got Newcastle in the FA Cup. So I mean, and they've won the League Cup, so technically they could win a cup treble. So I'd probably say it's too early to say that. And I also think that in most seasons in Premier League history, this Man City team would have waltzed it. I guess the flip side to this is, it's incredible that Man City have spent so much money and yet they still can't defend. Like, how is that something that they haven't managed to solve? You've got tens and hundreds of millions of pounds. For me, it's just crazy that you can't find a decent centre-back. You have to essentially turn a centre defence midfielder into a centre-back. And, we saw what happened with stuff like that last night.
It is mad, and it's like this is why one of the things when people question the figures that are assigned to football and transfer fees and all that type of thing, when you actually appreciate what like a world-class defender is and how few and far between they are in the game itself, and maybe how they fit into a certain side. If the big clubs want their man and they feel like they're going to fit perfectly from a chemistry perspective into that side, then they are worth whatever value, because look at the way that Liverpool have built that team out. The weird thing about Man City this season is that they have won so many games so impressively as well with clean sheets. Like they've turned over so many sides with high scoring. I mean, look at 8-0 against Watford, and
but I think
4-0 against Brighton, 5-0 against West Ham. They've turned teams over massively.
I think what's curious with Man City, though, is that although they don't really seem to concede many chances, they do concede quite a few goals, which, for me is quite indicative of a team that makes massive errors that cause easy goals, I guess, like we saw last night, as opposed to a team that gives some half chances away, but, they're not declaring things that teams can consistently score from. And they just need to resolve that if they're going to consistently win the Premier League against a team as impressive as Liverpool. They're not going to be able to match them unless they did it last season, obviously, and they were fantastic last season. But I think even then, their attacking outweighed the defending, and they just scored more than they conceded. And Liverpool had a couple of blips. Was it Wolves they dropped points against? Around the January time, they sort of threw it away against City in that sort of festive period, and they didn't do that this time. They were just much more, just unbeatable for such large portions. So
yeah, I think City are an interesting one though, because if you talk about their defence, right, you've got Laporte, who's great, Edison's great, Mendy can be or should be, and I mean personally, I do really like Kyle Walker, but yeah, the rest of their centre halves. No, João Cancelo, very peculiar. I always had in my head that he was a wonderful, wonderful wing back, and he's hardly played this season. Zinchenko is just a squad filler. So they've got some serious work to do there. But then you also think what's going on, what else they need to sort of pump up this season, this pre-season, in the transfer window is going to be, a replacement for Sane. A replacement for David Silva. They probably need another striker because Aguero is getting to the end of his road. You don't know how serious this knee injury is really going to turn out to be, and how long that will affect him. Pep talking about playing Gundogan up front as a replacement. That's not a good look for City if that's what they're resorting to. They've got a lot of work to do, actually. They've got some of the best players in the world, but not enough of them to be challenging Liverpool, evidently.
Yeah, I think that, you make a good point, I guess, about the defenders, and they do have some pretty good defenders in there, like Laporte, like Walker. And you said, Cancelo, he came to Man City with a pretty fantastic reputation. Was it Juventus he popped over from? So I think potentially, I guess the issue is just getting the defenders to play together. I mean, we saw that with Man United earlier this season, that they had some quality defenders. Harry Maguire, by all means, is considered to be a pretty good centre-back, even if his fee was too high. But they just couldn't really gel. And then, we seem to have seen in 2020 that they have managed to come together. And that defensive setup looks a lot more solid now. But you just don't get that same feeling from that City side. You always feel like, you're walking on eggshells when they've got the ball. John Stones has the ball at his feet, and you don't know if he's going to do a nice little pass or if he's going to boot it to one of the other, or just tamely, I guess, pass it to one of the other players on the other team. So it's just.
I think that's the thing. I think a little bit is I don't know why it is necessarily at City, but they don't ooze the confidence that you sometimes see from Liverpool. Because I think a lot of those players are technically good enough. Well, they obviously are in that Man City team to be a great team or to be as good as Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool don't have a great deal of strength in depth. You'd say that Man City have probably got more strength in depth than Liverpool have. When you look,
it's funny. I know City got a clean sheet against Arsenal, but I think it was in like the first 10 minutes, and Nketiah almost got played through a couple of times. And I literally had the message sort of drafted to send to you two to say Nketiah is going to do a double bag tonight. And then I thought, I'll just give it a minute, actually. And he didn't. So there's no evidence of that at all. Where's your proof? So, yeah, even against just Arsenal, they still looked like they could easily have dropped 1 or 2 goals. And, Arsenal were far from their very best that night.
Maybe it's the players in front of the defence that are the problem rather than... I mean, it's hard to look at that midfield and go, that might be the problem, but maybe it's a tactical thing. Because
Fernandinho's playing centre-half now, isn't he? Fernandinho's not there.
Yeah.
And, was he the ultimate player to play in that spot that made that system work? I don't know. I'm not a tactician. But not having him there, I think, even though he is obviously so... he's getting towards the tail end of his career now. Was he 34, 35? He had to be replaced. He couldn't have kept on going forever. And it just shows maybe just how talismanic he actually was.
Is Phil Foden the replacement for David Silva? There's a lot of talk about that, isn't there? Even though he's not played many games, he's had an impressive couple of outings recently.
I think so, yeah. I think that's the natural solution. So, yeah, the Stockport Iniesta. And as a fellow birthee of Stepping Hill Hospital, all power to him.
We talked a bit about City there. To pivot back to Liverpool, I guess. I was wondering what you guys thought, or who you guys thought was their standout player this season. Because for me, it's not necessarily clear. Dave's already mentioned Alexander-Arnold has been incredible. Salah, Mane, Van Dijk. There's plenty of players in there you could pick out as a star. But who for you is the best one this season?
It's a really good question, Miles. Well, thanks for asking.
Thank you.
I think I think it's probably Trent overall, because he's been there all season as just the best right back in the world really now. And
he's so consistent, hasn't he?
Yeah, and there was a period towards was it around October to December? I can't quite remember exactly, where Mane was playing as if he was in one of the top 5 players in the world and could easily go on, if he carried on that form, going on seriously challenge for the Ballon d'Or. I think he slipped away slightly, but what was to Liverpool's credit was when Mane slipped back slightly, Salah would come back and then he might slip back and then Firmino would pick it up for a few games. So having that front three was majestic. But I think all of those three did really well, but I don't think they were their best players across the entire season. I'd probably put that down to Alexander-Arnold and Van Dijk.
It's weird when you look at, because we've seen Salah playing better, haven't we? So it almost feels like it's not been a particularly spectacular season for Salah, but he is their top scorer. But like when you look back over the season, I don't necessarily think, Salah was absolutely outstanding. In a way, it's felt like he hasn't really been as on fire as what we saw a couple of seasons ago from him. Was it last season or the season before? His
first season was just so impressive, 2017 to 18. And then, last season was that sort of difficult second season. But I don't know. I think he's probably matched, what he did last season. But I'd probably agree and say Trent is the one who you would say has been most impressive. He is definitely the best right back in the world. In sort of from spot kick situations, there are very few players that I can imagine you'd rather have behind that ball. De Bruyne maybe, Messi maybe, but Trent is right up there with the very best. And he's just such an asset, and he's one of those players that you could easily see just moving up into, like if they had a 4-man midfield, he'd be a right midfielder for sure. But because they play 4-3-3, he's kind of locked into that right back role. But he's not in any sort of traditional sense a right back. He's more of a Beckham than a Neville. So I
think all the midfielders have been great as well. Henderson, Wijnaldum and Fabinho have been like sort of the top 3 for me. And I remember when Fabinho got injured, and I think we even questioned here on the pod that he could be that. That could be the biggest problem for them. There, how do they replace him? He'd been so instrumental of just, being the metronome of the team. And I think they won every single game he missed. So I think that for me was the standout moment of the season when I realised that Liverpool really were not relying on one or two players. The whole unit was just phenomenal. I think Henderson has been really good. I think he probably gets lauded a little bit more than he would do compared to Wijnaldum. I think Wijnaldum's been better this season. I think he's just a scintillating player, and I think it'd be madness to let him go.
I can't think though of a better captain. Like if I was a player, and Henderson, he certainly wasn't my favourite player back in his day, having played for Sunderland. But if I was a player playing with in a Premier League club, I don't think I can imagine a captain that I'd want more than someone like Henderson. He just seems like someone who's clearly a natural leader, and he's been great for them on and off the pitch, I guess, this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I still prefer Gigi. Yeah.
And what about their weak spots? Like I think we thought, or certainly the consensus in football media seemed to think that they might nab Timo Werner from RB Leipzig, and he's obviously gone to potential title rivals Chelsea this summer. So I mean, for me, it's obvious that they need a forward. But is there anyone in particular you think they should go for? Are there any other positions that you think they need to try and bolster up a little bit?
I think that forward spot. I think just coverage across the front three. It's been a funny season, obviously with a 3-month break. And I know we said this about Mane last season or the start of this season that he's played so much football, he's going to need a break. He's not really needed that at all. But if they do play a lot of the next few, the remainder of the season, and then go into a very short pre-season and then back to the season again, expecting the same kind of consistency across that front three it's just not feasible, I don't think. And then if you've got Origi, if he stays, Shaqiri, Minamino, I think they need something a bit stronger than that. Potentially another midfielder, especially if they have to get rid of if Wijnaldum leaves. But I think they're in a really good spot, and potentially someone who is fluid enough to fill in at left back or right back, who isn't Milner anymore. They can keep up.
We could see Kiana Hoover come through. He's someone who's been knocking about our next gen list for a little while, and he's clearly highly rated at Liverpool. We could see some. I mean, I guess those youngsters that are on the sort of periphery at the moment at Anfield, we could see a few of them over the next few weeks and make rash judgments about them. Absolutely.
I think that's the way I would hope they do it, rather than splurge 50 mil on it's not going to be 50 mil these days, is it? Splurge 20, 30 mil on an import who will do all right, but sit on the bench primarily because you're not going to be getting ahead of Trent or the front three, and just put their faith in the youth players who will be more willing to sit, watch, learn, and take their opportunities when they come, rather than a transfer in who will be expecting to play.
Yeah,
I think our Liverpool team isn't looking at. You're not looking at players leaving, though, are you? Either there's not really any that you would necessarily say are going to be snapped up by other clubs now. Feels like Klopp's got quite a settled side who've still got a few years left in. Those core players, those really important players that are part of that Liverpool team now that are winning things. You can see a lot of them staying at Liverpool.
Well, that's one of the most impressive things they've done, Liverpool, is that they have, they lost Coutinho to Barcelona. Like, it's always been a thing that top players in the Premier League end up getting poached by Barcelona or Real Madrid. We saw it, decades ago with David Beckham, Manchester United, Ronaldo obviously going to Real Madrid for Man United. A lot of the top players at top Premier League clubs, even at their ascendancy, at the sort of peak of where they're at, they often just leave for Barcelona and Real Madrid. But I guess they're fortunate in a way that at the moment Barcelona and Real Madrid have fallen off a little bit in terms of where you might pin them in the pecking order. Real Madrid having come down off that treble of Champions League titles, and Barcelona are just a club that are all over the place off the pitch, and you wouldn't wish it on your enemy to go there right now. They're just a complete and utter shambles. So I think they've benefited in that sense, and they lost Coutinho, who at that point was considered their best player, and they didn't really show any sign of it affecting them. If anything, they improved. Their midfield was arguably more balanced with him leaving. So. That's been really impressive for me. And Mane and Salah, they've both been linked with Real Madrid over the past couple of years since they've really taken that step up to world-class level. I guess what's interesting for me is that our Liverpool correspondent, Neil Jones, he mentioned how his understanding with Timo Werner was they didn't really want to pay 50 million, which is roughly around his release clause, for the player, even though they really wanted him in this current pandemic. So if they're not willing to pay for one of their top targets 50 million, are they going to be able to sign a player who is going to be able to compete in that first team straight away? Because that's really the minimum buy you would expect, considering how good that team is. You need someone who you're going to pay an awful lot of money for. Jadon Sancho for me is the obvious one who they should be really going for, but Man United will outbid them, because Man United aren't seemingly aren't scared of spending money right now, whereas Liverpool are much more hesitant, which might make sense in a business perspective, but you could argue that it's worthwhile in the long term to put down a bit of money for a top player.
Yeah, I think it just boosts the team as well, doesn't it? Really, you get those. United used to do it. They'd win the title, and then in the summer they'd buy a kind of hallmark type player, a big signing, and then it just seemed to kind of give them a little bit more momentum again. And going into the next season, it was a bit of a kind of I don't know what you would say, kind of a bit of a signal to the other sides. It's like last season you thought we were good, now we're going to be even better. It's like, and I always quite enjoyed that, because it was always a bit of a, come and have a go type thing for the rest of the team.
Consistent statement of intent, isn't it?
Yeah, and the top teams do it. I think like Barcelona have done it when they've been on top. Real Madrid have done it when they've been on top. You've seen them kind of bring in those names. But
it's always interesting how often they flop as well. Like I can think of so many Man United flops. I was like, Veron is just burning a hole in the back of my mind right now, thinking about how he came over and certainly didn't impress. Forlan, was he a big deal when he came over, Sam? I can't remember, but he obviously had more success elsewhere.
No, not really. I can't even remember where we signed him from. Was it straight from Uruguay?
I can't remember either.
Or was it? No.
I think it might have been Spain, but...
Yeah, was it further right? I can't remember. Either way, he just became a bit of a folk hero in a way, because he could never bloody score. It took him a ridiculous amount of games, like 20 games plus to score. Mainly not starting everyone. Yeah. And then he scored 2 against Liverpool, and just scored some really cult goals that have held him there. Di Maria, that's a great example of trying to grow, and then that was.
Remember when United were linked with Marcelo Salas? I always remember feeling quite excited about that, because I think he'd had like an amazing World Cup or something. Was it after a World Cup? And then it looked like he was going to get a move to United. And I just remember thinking, wow, it's going to be amazing seeing him in the Premier League.
Well, yeah, he scored one goal. He scored a world-class goal against England and was really good on Championship Manager, which is probably what you're thinking about.
Probably, yeah. That's about the extent of my knowledge right there.
Yeah.
I think it was, is it Cliver who, at one point, Patrick Cliver, he almost signed to you guys. I seem to remember Man United fans booing him when they played against, was it Barcelona he ended up joining in the end? I can't remember the order of the clubs now, but I guess they've come close to signing some big players over the years, and some they got, some they didn't.
Thiago, get out of Barcelona.
Yeah.
Thiago,
yeah. Apparently Moyes didn't want Thiago, wanted Fellaini instead. And saw how that worked out for Mr. Moyes.
Oh dear. I forgot. I often forget about that terrible reign that he had. It wasn't even a year, was it? It didn't last the season.
No, it was like 8 months.
Excellent. To finish on this Liverpool spot then, so there's their first title, their first Premier League title. They've joined Blackburn Rovers and Leicester City at the sort of bottom of that Premier League ladder. There's Arsenal on 3 titles, which I was saying before this, that I was surprised they have that few. For some reason, I thought they had like 5, but Man City on 4, Chelsea on 5, and then Man United streaming ahead on 13. But surely, with everything that Liverpool have set up right now, that club seems solid. Surely this is the first of many for them.
Well, I mean, call me a purist. They're not on 1, they're on 19, aren't they?
I'm glad you said that, Sam.
Thank you,
that
Dave.
means Huddersfield have still got 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not forget the little
1920s, when football was great.
Yeah, the roaring 20s. But yeah, they should. I think this is the best or the easiest they will have won the league. Will get to win the league. I think it'll be much, much harder next year. So yeah, they could easily repeat. I think the idea of them three-peating is a bit of a stretch. But yeah, as long as they can keep what they've got at the moment and just continue to iterate upon it and just tweak it each season to make it better and better, then they will stay where they are in that that top echelon that is usually occupied by a couple of clubs at a time. Just pitter around the top 2. Now is their chance, and I think next season is the most obviously the one for them to just continue on with. But they drew against Everton, they lost against Watford. The wheels are coming off. So yeah, I think they should carry on. But I think by the end of the 2020s, I think they could have 3 titles maybe.
3.
Well, that's lowballing them. I think they're lowballing.
I don't know. I think that is realistic, though, isn't it? I mean,
3.
They've got a long. It's unbelievable when you look at how many titles Man United have won. It's just mind blowing. I mean, look at City, for instance. Like, they've won a few Premier League titles now, but they haven't by any means got it in the bag season in, season out. So when you look at what Man United did over those 20 odd years or whatever it is, it's just mind blowing.
Bookmark this, Miles, and in 2030 we'll come back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll try and remember. I'll put a little pin in that, like a little time capsule. Dig it out.
Yes.
In 10 years' time. Well, they could go level with Manchester United, I guess, next season on 20 titles, couldn't they? So that'll be a big moment for them if they manage to pull that off. We will
join Man United on their perch. Yeah.
Yeah, we will see about that. So that's Liverpool out of the way. We've done and dusted that. Let's actually look back a little bit on our game week 30 and 31 results. So we were joking a little bit before, over the past week, really, that Dave was going to catch you, Sam. But actually, in the end, you pulled away from him. Well, thing is, Sam's pulled away. You got 75 points. Dave, you got 70 points. Decent hauls, both of you. But in the end, Sam has managed to extend that lead a little bit.
No, let's talk about the week before, Miles. Because we haven't had a show since then, and I got 102 points. So that was the week where Sam was looking at it and thinking, "Oh my God, this is actually happening. He's gonna catch me." Then I was like, I spent all weekend jumping around, joy, absolutely loving life, thinking it's on. I'm absolutely mastered FPL. And then I forgot to do my transfers and set my team for the next week. And I was like, no! And it's cost me 5 points, I think, this week.
What would you have done differently? And don't say you'd have made Martial captain.
I probably would. I mean, when you're on a roll, you're on a roll. You just do things and it just comes off. So I've kind of I've Steven Gerrard it. I've slipped. Unfortunately, and I think I've kind of I'll let you in a little bit, because what would I have done differently? It's a difficult one, actually, because I wanted to take Aubameyang out. I'm not going to lie. I was watching the game against Southampton, just begging him to score, and gets through one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and what does he do? Rattle it off the underside of the crossbar, and blooming Nketiah ends up scoring for Arsenal rather than Aubameyang. So I think I would have definitely dropped Aubameyang, because having seen what I saw of him, and certainly the way Arsenal were playing that previous game week, I just thought, what a waste of money he is. I'm not exactly sure who would have put back in. I think I watched the Liverpool-Everton game and I would have probably put Dominic Calvert-Lewin back in, but that doesn't necessarily kind of cover me in glory because he's not really done he didn't do anything.
Yeah, he got 2 points as well.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, game week 30, I bench boosted, made a ton of changes to try and make the most of the double game week, and I fucked it up. So the only person off my bench who actually played was Leno. Ozil didn't play across 2 matches. O'Connell didn't play across 2 matches, and Brandon Williams didn't play in his match.
I did think it was a bit mad, but you had Egan as well, didn't you? Which didn't work out.
Yeah,
so well.
So he got a clean sheet and then lost 3 points because he got bloody sent off.
That was funny.
My captain got 2 points each round, which was Aubameyang. So obviously over a double game week and double points for captain, it came in with a normal week, okay, 8. So yeah, I think the fact that I've still managed to pull in 80 points, which it could have gone a lot worse. And then 75 points this week. Some stupendous choices. Martinez, Arsenal's keeper, got me 8 points. My Wolves back line got me 13.
You would hope. I mean, you did your wild card, so you did get a chance to remold that team a little bit. So you've got that going for you. You needed a good week really after the week before.
Well, yeah, I only slid like 22 points away from Dave. I'm just trying to keep it interesting, basically. It's like Everton, yeah. Liverpool drawing with Everton. People just go, oh, what if? And then, this week I thought, no, he's had his little moment now of excitement. I'm just going to get back to that almost like Mayweather mechanical jab, Lennox Lewis style, jab, just wear them down, eke away 5 points. Yeah, just increase your lead 5 points at a time.
I would have brought Bowley off the bench actually, just as well to add to that this week if I'd have made any changes ahead of it. I'd have put him in the side again instead of probably Stevens, Sheffield United, who haven't looked great since the restart.
No, they haven't.
We talked about what might happen. United just training grounded them really. I thought it was, and I think we are going to see that. And in fact, talking about United as well, they at home at Old Trafford without that pressure of the kind of home support, I thought they looked a lot more comfortable. They were playing balls along the back, right along, like right in front of De Gea at points. And I was thinking to myself, if that's Old Trafford and there's a gasp of nervousness, especially you kind of see sometimes from Maguire and some of the defenders at United looking a bit twitchy. I think the fact they haven't got a kind of like crowd there on top of them necessarily can help United go and do the things that they can do because they've got a lot of quality in that team.
Yeah, I thought Sheffield United looked absolutely gassed by the end of it. Yeah, I think even the commentator, I can't remember who it was, like just pointed out Lundstrom in the last 5 minutes. And, he looked like he'd run a marathon with 20 kilos on his shoulders. He looked dead on his feet.
But I mean, I don't know how much rotation they've been doing, but what was it? They had 3 games in, I guess, 8 days, maybe 9 days.
Yeah.
After no football for 3 months, that is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess that is always going to play against them. But they haven't done well coming back from
no, and then they've got Spurs on Thursday. And then that's the 2nd, and then they're straight into another game away at Burnley on the 5th. And then where are they?
Wolves and Chelsea.
Then they've got Wolves on the 8th. And then is it Chelsea Everton on the 12th? That's just, obviously this last three games have been tough for them. They've got a week break now almost. And then they've got, just relentless matches. I think, I might keep 1 or 2 of the defenders just as I transfer them out, really.
They don't have a week break.
The Spurs match.
They don't have a week break either because they've got the FA Cup this weekend.
Of course, yeah.
Against Arsenal, which I can only imagine they're going to field a second team for. But considering the fixture congestion they've had, but, I guess we'll find out on either weekend. It'll be interesting to see what all of them do, actually, all the different teams, considering the Premier League will be a priority, and all these games crammed together. It's not like what you see usually at this stage of the season, where it's only really the top sort of elite teams that are still in Europe that are trying to juggle it a little bit. Everyone's struggling somewhat, so be interesting.
Yeah, I'm just looking at after wildcarding my team. I've got two. I've got Baldock and Henderson. I'm going to keep Henderson, but Baldock, I may just keep him on the bench. Actually, he's only a few quid, isn't he?
How much is Martinez? That's a pretty decent pickup.
He is 4.2.
That's nice. I might put him in actually because I want to do a bench boost at some point. So I need a backup keeper who can get some points, because Stecklenburg is just obviously not getting me anything. He's just losing value, which is frustrating. Let's run through the points then of what we're on. So the current standings are Sam on 1,749 points. Dave is, I can't do the maths here, but roughly 70 behind on 1,681 points. And I'm further behind still on 1,633 points, which is ugly. My total, by the way, for this game week was 51 points, which maybe in a usual week you might think that's all right, but the average was 62 points. And I reckon that average is dragged down by so many people who can't be bothered playing anymore. So that's not good luck.
What's gone wrong, Miles? What's gone wrong?
Everything, I guess. Literally everything, except for the fact that I've still got De Bruyne. I think one of my main problems is that I'm really, really bad at picking a captain. I'm going to pinpoint that as an area of an improvement for next season. My striker choices have been consistently, I wouldn't say weak, I would say unfortunate. Aubameyang, throwing him in and him basically doing nothing since. He's one of the top scoring strikers in the league this season. And as soon as I put him in, he stopped scoring. That's unfortunate. Aguero, I picked him at the wrong times consistently. I've had some bright spots, but it's been relatively weak. I'm not too happy with this season, to be honest. But I'm hoping I can at least claw back a bit of respectability. And I've like you guys, you've used all your special buttons. I've still got my bench boost.
Buttons.
I've still got my free hit. So I'm holding them back, and I'm waiting to use them, because there will be a point potentially where there'll be a double game week due to the FA Cup it affecting one of the rounds. So I'm holding out for that, and that's when I'm going to use my free hit, I think. So
now might even be the time to get some Newcastle players in. They actually look quite good at the moment.
I'm not falling for that. I'm not
trying to trick you.
But I know.
Well, send Max in. Honestly, he looks amazing. Newcastle.
If you pick him for that right 1 in 6 match, Miles, he gets points. It's the other 5.
I know that if I keep them out of my team, they might keep getting points. But actually, I was about to throw in, but just before I did my transfer before this podcast, and I wanted to put in Matt Ritchie, because he's the most informed defender right now over the past 5 match weeks, and we've got some decent-ish games coming up. He's a relatively attacking defender in the typical sense on FPL. And he's 5.3 million, which isn't too much. So I was going to throw him in, but I wanted to get rid of Martin Kelly, who's red with a calf injury. And it doesn't seem like he's coming back anytime soon. And he's 4.1. And although I had a bit of money in the bank, I was 0.2 short of being able to afford him. And then my backup was Michael Keane, who I was 0.1 short of being able to get him. So then I just cast my net wider for another Everton player. And I found myself at Mason Holgate's door, who is 4.3 million, which is nice.
Nice.
So he consistently plays. He's not going to get me more than 6 points any week, but he might get me the occasional 6 points, which is all I can ask of an Everton defender, really. He's not going to be someone in my starting lineup. I just needed a new defender because I've got 2 Liverpool defenders in my team, and I don't think doubling up against Man City is the wisest of moves, considering how high scoring they are. I'm keeping Van Dijk in my starting lineup, but Gomez is dropping to the bench. How are your guys' teams looking?
I'm pretty happy with mine. Where am I now? So I had my bench boost and I threw a wild card last week. So at the moment, I'm going to keep Martinez in goal rather than Henderson, because Arsenal playing Norwich at home rather than Sheffield United, who've got Tottenham at home. I back 3 of Saiss from Wolves, Probably Serge Aurier and Bowley of Wolves. Midfield 5 of Son, Salah, De Bruyne, Fernandes, and Richarlison at the moment. But I think he might be getting changed to Tony Marshall.
Predictable.
Oh, what a great idea! Yeah, I wonder where you got that from. Knowledge of my own opinion, Dave.
So you're just gonna pick the same picks as me, so I can't catch you. That's the plan, is it?
I wouldn't dare do something so churlish. And up front, I've got Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin. I'll keep Calvert-Lewin in for a little bit. Everton are doing okay, but I'd rather go as strong as I can in the midfield, just because obviously you get an extra couple of points with them. Captain-wise, I think I might be going, don't know actually, maybe Jimenez. Because they've got Villa away. Villa. Yeah, Villa away.
So I have got some hope then with you having 2 Spurs players in your team. I wouldn't go there personally, but we will see, won't we?
What's your team look like, Dave?
I do mine because I've made a couple of transfers and I've locked them in. I'm not 100% sure about them, to be honest. Goalkeeper. Let's not talk about my goalkeeper. I've got Gator. They're playing Burnley though, but he's got. Yeah, I think he's injured, so I don't know if he's going to play. But anyway, Walker, Alexander-Arnold, and Bowley at the back 3. Kind of like spreading my bets a bit on the being a clean sheet, I suppose. The Man City Liverpool game, and then in midfield, Fernandes, Martial captain against Brighton. De Bruyne. I've got Grealish in as well, which is another one of those transfers that I don't know why I put him in, because I talk him down all the time. I'm like, honestly, he's not worth it, but got a bit excited, I think, when we got all those free transfers and stuck him in. But up front, what I've done is I've put Olivier Giroud and Marcus Rashford in. So I've actually added him to the Jimenez strike force, and because for me, what I've seen so far since the restart is 2 teams looking pretty good, Man United and Chelsea. And Chelsea's fortunes have turned slightly since they started playing Giroud as the point man up front. So we haven't seen a great deal of Abraham. He's just been coming off the bench. Don't know if he's been injured or what, but I'm sure Frank Lampard looks at the results since I think they lost to United and then they beat Tottenham. But since they beat Tottenham, they've basically had Giroud playing up front as a lone striker. And I think he scored 3 goals or something since then. So why not? He's a beautiful man.
He is a beautiful man. That does work in his favour, I think. He was nice last night, like his hold-up play. He did a beautiful little flick at one point. I don't know if you saw that part. I didn't
see a lot of the game last night, actually. No,
it was. I don't think they scored from it, but it was a good chance for Chelsea, and it was just like a little sort of turnaround back heel. It was as gorgeous as he is. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the other obvious choice, I guess, for Chelsea, anyone who's looking to Chelsea and thinking they're on the upturn, which they obviously are, didn't they? What are they, like 5 points above United, or is it more than that now?
They're only 1 point behind Leicester now, I think.
Yeah, so Pulisic he's pretty hot right now. Is it 2-2 he's got for them?
Yeah, pretty hot right now.
So
that Hansel's so hot right now. Yeah, I mean, we saw this though earlier in the season, didn't we? He went on a blistering 3-game streak, and that was literally all his goals for the entire season, bar since it restarted. But
yeah, that's why I haven't put him in.
Yeah, he looks like he's grown up a little bit. I don't know whether his face has just weathered a little bit. He just looks like more of a man. So, hopefully it's helped him adapt to the UK. I hope he does kick on and do well. I wouldn't dare put him near my team at the moment, though.
No, because he's one of those players that you feel like you got burnt by earlier in the season. I'd rank him along.
I feel like I got burnt by. I did get burnt by him.
Yeah, he's one of those FPL players. You just at the moment he's going to have to do a lot to regain the trust, I think, of FPL managers.
Hey, Sam, did you put Mount in after you said he was a decent option, or did I just fall for that? And
no, you fell for it, mate. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah, there's another mistake, falling for your shit tips. That's probably something I can work on for next season.
They're never tips. They're just things to consider and form your own opinion around.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll
those traps they had in Vietnam, where they like cover them up. It's just like spikes and they cover them up with like leaves. That's what Sam's tips are.
I'll run through my team quickly. So I've got Edison in goal, Van Dijk, Holgate, Doherty in defence, Mount, Fernandes, Maddison, De Bruyne, and Saka in midfield, and then Aubameyang and Kane up front. I think I'm going to put Aubameyang as my captain, and I hate myself for it, but I just figure, you know what? He's going, if he doesn't do anything this game week, he may as well go out with a bang or a whimper. So he's being my captain.
So if he scores a hat-trick, will you keep him?
Probably, yeah. It's all or nothing, right. It's who've they got after? Let's have a quick look. We got Wolves after. No, they'll probably be rubbish. I don't know. I'll decide. If it's a good hat trick, I'll keep him. But I get the impression. For me, it's a complete waste of a captain pick because I just feel he's going to be terrible. But you know what? This is what my season has become. It's just become bitter selections to cutting off your nose to spite your face is essentially what my season has become.
Yeah, essentially you're in the realm of twice weekly Hail Marys, aren't you? Just something to claw back, at least just try and get less than, is it 100 and how many points are you behind me? About 160. Just try and get, to two figures deficit. That's your
be a win,
yeah. That's your championship.
Yeah. pitiful point of view for me. I'll quickly run through just before we finish how our public league is looking. So, Milner and Islam, who has been top for large chunks of the season, actually, is clinging on to top spot by a singular point. Jamie Lopez, a new contender, as far as I can remember anyway, is hot on his heels. He bagged a ferocious 98 points. So he sits on 1,959, just behind Milner and Islam. I've slumped down to 1,218th. So I'm a fair bit down the pecking order. I don't know where you guys are. I couldn't bring myself to look, but do you know where you are in that overall league?
I am the 378th.
378th.
And I'm 817th.
Okay. See, there's a bit of a gap there, yeah. Well, none of us are contending for that title anyway. So we'll see how that goes again next week when we chat. Podcast listeners and YouTubers, you can join our league and test yourself against us all season long. The code to type in on the FPL website is NHC4WZ. Let's wrap this up. Dave, Sam, thanks very much for joining me from your homes today. Podcast listeners, YouTube viewers, you can get in touch by tweeting your fantasy football thoughts with the hashtag UKFFS. We'll be back in early July for more FPL action.
Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, follow on Spotify, or however you listen to podcasts on your favourite platform. Leave a review if you liked it, and if you didn't, what are you still doing here? Check out Goal for your daily dose of football news from the Premier League and around the world. Thanks for listening.